So let us understand today that what soil is perfect soil for my plant, whether it is an indoor plant or an outdoor plant. So let's get started. First thing as a gardener that I need to understand is that what does my plant want or require. Now the plants, they want nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. These three are the most important ingredients that are important for any plant's growth, but to some extent they also want calcium, boron, manganese, magnesium, and that's about it. These are the main things that they want. Now we have to understand that when we plant a plant inside a pot or in the ground, it's a little bit easier because the roots, they have the access to the soil and they can just dig deep in and they can find their food from somewhere or the other. But that's not the case in the pot. So whenever we are planting our plants in the pot, we have to make sure that we feed them every single component that they are looking for their great growth. Otherwise what happens is maybe their growth gets restricted, or because of lack of nutrients they are getting fungal attacks or mealybugs attack and whatnot, or maybe then they are not blooming. So we have to make sure that we feed them a perfect food. Now the easiest thing that one can do is they can buy a potting mix packet from the nursery and they can straight away plant their plants inside the potting mix. As you can see, I use this one. So the reason I use potting mix in some cases is because it has all the important components that your plants require, and it has that water retaining capacity. It will hold the moisture that the plant is looking for. So hence, if you have the accessibility towards such potting mix, I would say if you are a beginner or someone that does not have a lot of time, potting mix is not a bad idea. You can straight away plant your plants inside the potting mix, or if you have some garden soil, you can take a little bit of garden soil and little bit of potting mix, let's say 50-50 ratio, mix them well, and you can plant your soil inside the potting mix as well. Now again, proper drainage is very important for any plant. When the plant is in the ground, what happens is even if you overwater it or give it a lot of water, the water will just spread inside the ground and there will not be a blockage of water. But that's not the case if it is a pot. So you have to make sure that there is a proper drainage, obviously the pot with proper holes in the bottom part so that the water can easily get out. But apart from that, you need to add some material that gives proper aeration to the roots of the plant, and also apart from that, there is a proper drainage. And what things will help you? Let's say perlite, vermiculite. You can add some sand if you don't have the access to perlite or vermiculite. I have perlite and vermiculite mixture, so this is 50% perlite and 50% vermiculite. I ordered it online. What I'll do is I'll just post the link, and you can use this. They are very lightweight, so it's not very difficult to carry here and there and do the gardening with these things. But only thing you have to make sure is that while dealing with them, if you're allergic to dust, because I know this, they have a lot of this dust thing in them, and when you use them, that dust will just come on you. So if you want, you can wear a mask or something like that while using them. But if you don't have perlite vermiculite, that's not a problem. You can use sand, you can use those small little pebbles or rocks, but basically you should use definitely one of these so that there is proper aeration and proper drainage inside your pots. And especially when you plant plants like cactus or succulents, your snake plants, such plants, they need a lot of aeration and lot of loose soil. So these plants should have a lot of vermiculite or perlite in their soil. So as you can see, this is my Sansevieria, my snake plant, and there is so much of perlite inside it, vermiculite inside it, and look at the soil, it's so loose. Hence, if you have any such succulent or any plant that requires very less water, as in when you pour water, the roots should just get access to some water and the remaining water should immediately move out. Such plants, I would say even Calathea, they don't require a lot of water. So such plants, you should definitely add these so that the soil is well drained. Next thing that your plants want is proper fertilizer. Solid fertilizer, adding it in your soil mixture inside your pot is a great idea. In fact, I would suggest 30 to 40% should be fertilizer. In my case, I use a mixture of organic compost and cow manure. As you can see on the screen, these two are my favorites. So I just mix them well and I use it for my every single plant. Especially I use them a lot for my plants that flower a lot, and then the plants that have vegetables or any sort of fruits in them, they definitely need a lot of cow manure and organic compost for a great blooming and a growth. So if you'll have a look over here, this side is cow manure and that is organic compost. 50-50 percentage ratio I will take, and I will just mix it properly and I will feed it to all my plants when I'm making their soil, because these are heavily rich in phosphorus, potassium and nitrogen, and we know that NPK are the most important components for any plant, and hence using cow manure and organic compost will definitely help you while gardening. Some of us, what we have done as mistakes, I would say, even when I started gardening around 10-15 years ago, what we do is we straight away plant our plants inside the normal garden soil that is just lying outside. That is not a good idea, because number one, what that will do is it will be very suffocating for the plant, that it is like a very clayey soil, you know. So just planting your plant inside the garden soil is definitely not a good idea. And second thing is extreme lack of nutrients. If there is no nutrient, your plant will not grow, it will not look happy. After a few days you will feel that it's sad, and maybe then later it will die. So what this does is it will demotivate you and you will not like to do a lot of gardening. So what I would recommend is investing some money in getting good soil potting mix fertilizer is a great idea, because what that will do is when you mix them well and you give it to your plants, and when your plants will grow and bloom heavily, it will give you so much of happiness that you would want to do more and more gardening. Next I want to talk about is Coir, cocoa peat or peat moss. You know, there are so many names. It's basically the husk of the coconut shell, so that is basically used in the soil mixture as well. Now this should be used only if you want to keep the soil moist a lot. For example, they are best compatible with ferns. I have used them a lot in my ferns. So this is the cocoa peat that I'm saying, the peat moss, and on the packet of this thing it's written Coco Coir, so I will go with the name Coco Coir. And this is what I use for my plants when I want to make the soil moist. If you have a look, it's so soft and you can literally feel the coconut shell in it. Now adding this is a great idea, but not to all the plants. Like the previous ones that we saw, the succulents and all, they don't need these sort of Coco Coir in their soil. But yes, if you want to make the soil moist soil, you can add them as well. Now as I shared that I use them a lot for ferns, because ferns require a lot of moist soil. If you have a look over here, you can see the cocoa peat over here. It's literally a lot of cocoa peat. The reason is ferns, they love moist soil. If you have a look at the health of my fern plant, it is so lush green, and right now in Australia it is like more than 30-35 degrees Celsius every single day. So that means we are in our extreme hot conditions, and still the fern is lush green. The reason is cocoa peat will keep the soil moist and it will not let the environment around the roots of the plant dry up easily. And this has helped to keep the health of all my ferns very good. So I would highly recommend using Coco Coir if you want to make the soil moist, especially for ferns. Now these days a lot of people also plant seeds for vegetables and fruits and flowers. Whenever you plant seeds, I would highly recommend you not to use garden soil again, because it's very clayey. Maybe sometimes your seeds might come out, but if your seeds are not coming out, or if you're wondering why the seeds are not shooting well, that is because you might have just used garden soil. My favorite for seed planting is Coco Coir. If you plant your seeds straight inside the Coco Coir, or if you want to make mixture, what you can do is you can use 50% of Coco Coir and the remaining 50% you can use some fertilizer, let's say vermiculite, or as I mentioned, the organic compost or the cow manure. So you can mix this 50-50 and you can just plant your seeds, spray water on them and then leave it. This will really do magic for all your seeds, and using garden soil or any other thing is absolutely not required. Also, proper aeration in the soil of the seeds is very important, because seeds, when they start having roots, and if the soil does not have proper aeration or proper drainage, the roots might rot up. So adding perlite, vermiculite, as I mentioned, stones, pebbles, sand, whatever, in the soil where you want to plant seeds is a great idea, obviously with a lot of hole in the bottom so that there is no water blockage. Next thing that I want to talk about is bone meal. Now I know some of us might think that why to use so much, but if you have plants like rose plants or plants that are blooming heavily, that you want to bloom heavily and have a lot of flowers and colors in your garden, add bone meal in them, because let's say 5% of your total soil mixture, if that is bone meal, it is more than enough. Now this $5 packet will at least last me for another 6 months or maybe more, so I think it's worth it, especially if I want to have a lot of roses in my garden and any other flowers. As you can see, these flowers are literally because of bone meal. So when I add that 1 tablespoon of bone meal in them, this is the result, as you can see. So this is the bone meal, as you can see. And I would recommend giving bone meal only to plants that bloom heavily, that need flower, that will have flowers and fruits. Bone meal is not required for your indoor plants which only have leaves, so you can just stick to flowers for bone meal. Now as you can see, these are the ingredients that I use inside my soil to make that perfect soil. Let us quickly revise again. Perlite vermiculite, bone meal, Coco coir. This is organic compost, cow manure, and obviously little bit of garden soil, let's say 30% of garden soil. A proper mixture of these will make your plants and will give your plants a very healthy life. Now along with this, if you want, you can add a little bit of biofungicide. There are several biofungicides available like Trichoderma, Pseudomonas. There is Mancozeb available. If you're in Australia, Mancozeb is very famous. From Bunnings I just get it. Now one thing that I would encourage every one of you to do is use biofungicides or eco-fungicides and not those chemical fungicides. What sometimes I've seen is when there is any fungal attack on any of our plants, we just start panicking and we will go to the shop, get those chemical fertilizers or the fungicides, and we will start spraying them and using those powders on our plants. Now you have to understand one thing, that why are we doing gardening? We are doing gardening because we love it, that's our passion, and obviously we want to contribute in some possible way to the environment. Now when we use these chemical fungicides, what happens is the earthworms, they will die. The butterflies, the caterpillars, the honeybees that get attracted towards the flowers and the fruits of our garden, they will stop coming, they will die, and this will stop the process of pollination. Now what is this process of pollination? I'm not going to go into detailed biological explanation, but in a nutshell, this pollination process is very important, because as you see, honeybees, what they do is they will suck this juice from the flowers and then they will make this honey, and that is important for the flowers as well. The more pollination process will happen, the more flowers will bloom, and that is why sometimes, if you might have noticed, if there is any flower plant inside the house, it will have less flowers compared to the flowers that are outside, because outside the process of pollination is very easy. So please do not use any chemical fungicides. You can use biofungicides and mix them, let's say 2% of biofungicide proportion in the soil mixture that you have, and if you want to use spray, that is okay as well, but I would say powder form is very easy to mix in the soil, so you can just use that. Now if you're using plastic pots for your plants, whenever you lift your plastic pot after making the soil mixture, you have to make sure that it is not very heavy. In ceramic pots, to do this experiments, it's a little bit difficult, because ceramic pots themselves, they have so much of weight that when you lift them, you cannot judge properly. So this experiment is successful if you have a plastic pot. Let's say this is my blood heart plant and this is my pot. So when I lift the pot, it should be very light in weight, and this is the signal that there is proper aeration, there is not only nutrients or not only garden soil. And compared to a pot, if you see, which has only garden soil, it will be very heavy and the plants won't love it. So very lightweight pot is good for the plants, and they will always be happy, as you can see over here. I hope you enjoyed this video learning about proper soil mixture. I would say perfect soil mixture, and I hope this gives your plant a very great health and your plants look fit like this, as you can see mine on the screen, and this will definitely encourage you to have more and more plants in your life the way they are in my life. So goodbye for now and see you next time. Bye bye.